Patty Simpson with Simpson Math. In this video, we're going to use the statistical vocabulary that we've learned in the last few videos. Let's look at a couple of scenarios and use that vocabulary. First, we have Bluebell Creamery wants to determine its customers' favorite ice cream flavor in the state of Texas. The company sends out surveys to random customers. 2,250 customers complete the survey. 30% said milk chocolate was their favorite. So here's a scenario where Bluebell wants to find out from its customers in Texas about their favorite flavor of ice cream. The first vocabulary word that we talked about in previous videos was a population. Remember that the population is our entire group of interest. So in this case, Bluebell Creamery is interested, that group that it is interested in is its customers, specifically in the state of Texas. So the population here is, and remember when we talk about a population, we want to use the words all, or every, or the entire, or whole. So in this case, the population is every customer. And they don't care about the customers in Florida. They're not asking about the customers in Oklahoma. Right now, they're only looking at the customers in Texas. So it's every customer of Bluebell ice cream in Texas. That is our population. Then we look to see, did they collect data from that entire population? If they did, we call that a census. If they're able to get the data from the entire population, we call that a census. But in this case, they didn't go to all their population. In fact, we don't even know how big that population is. You can't even tell me how many customers there are in the state of Texas. So remember the N that we looked at before was the samples or the population size. If I gave you a capital N, this meant the population size. In this case, we don't even know how many customers there are in the state of Texas. So they can't collect data from all of them. So instead, what they did was they went out to some of their customers and they sent out surveys to random people, and they got back 2,250 customers completed that survey. So they were able to collect data from part of that population. And the sample here, the sample is the 2,250 customers that data was collected from. That's sent in the survey. So that is their sample, or the ones where they were able to actually collect the data from them. Then the variable of interest here, the thing that we're collecting data on, the thing that's changing from customer to customer is, well, what was the survey that they completed? They were telling us what their favorite flavor is. And that's what changed from customer to customer. That's the data that we're collecting. So the variable of interest is the flavor of ice cream. Then, by the way, in this case, our capital N was, we didn't know, but our sample size, our lowercase n, we do know that sample size. The sample size is 2,250. Then we also learned about the words statistic and parameter. If we take all our data, so this customer sends in vanilla, another one sends in chocolate, another one sends in cookie dough, and another one sends in brownie bits. So we collected all our data, all these favorite flavors. And we take and we narrow all those down to one number that represents all that data. That one number is either a statistic or a parameter. Well, in this case, we collected data from a sample. So that one number will be a statistic. So since we collected, or Bluebell collected data from a sample, some number is a statistic. I'm going to go ahead and write that in pink here. Statistic. So what is that one number? Well, once they've collected it all down, this proportion of people who said milk chocolate, this 30% right here, is one number that is describing my data. That 30% came from a sample, and since it came from a sample, it is a statistic. So there's how we can use that vocabulary to help us with a scenario. Let's do the other scenario the same way. A mental hospital wants to find out what percent of their patients admitted have depression. They check the records of every patient admitted in 2016. Out of the 40,000 patients, 32,000 had been diagnosed with either situational or clinical depression. So the first thing we want to know is, what's the population? What is their group of interest? Well, they want to know of their patients. They want to know about all their patients that are admitted. So their population is every patient that is admitted. So again, it's not the ones that aren't admitted. Maybe if they're an outpatient, they're not interested in that. They're interested in every one of their patient, or every or all patients admitted. Now, it doesn't specify a specific year. If it said that all the patients that were admitted in 2016, our answers would change here. We would put that in 2016. But they're just interested in all their patients. So then the sample is, well, did they collect the sample? If this had said all of their patients admitted in 2016, then this would actually be a census, because they went to the records of all or every of their patients in 2016 and collected data. So if our population had been all the patients in 2016, then they would have conducted a census. But they didn't. That wasn't their population. Their population of interest is all of their patients from every year. So these ones from 2016 are just a sample. So their sample are the patients from 2016. So the sample are the patients admitted in 2016. Notice that our population and our sample are the same thing. They're patients. They're patients. It's just that here the population is all the patients, whereas in our sample it's just the ones where we collected data from them. The ones we collected data from. Again, we don't know how many patients they have total. So our in here, our population size, we don't know. But our sample size, we do know. It tells us that there were 40,000 patients that they collected data from. That is our sample size. Then the variable of interest, what is it they're collecting data on? They're looking to see their diagnosis of depression. Are they diagnosed with depression or not? So the variable of interest that they're writing down is they're writing down the diagnosis. Each patient that comes in has a different diagnosis. And they're looking through and they're writing down the diagnosis. What were they diagnosed with? Then, since they collected data from a sample, again, since it's all of their patients, they just collected data from a sample. Whatever our number is that we collect and we say is that one number that represents all 40,000 40,000 diagnoses, that one number that we give, we call that a statistic. If they had collected, if it said admitted in 2016 right there, so that the population was all the students in 2016, then it would be a census, then that one number would be a parameter. We would change that to a parameter. But since our population is all our patients, this is a statistic. And what is the statistic? One number that represents all our data? Well, that is, out of the 40,000 patients, 32,000 had been diagnosed with depression. So we can make a proportion, one number to describe this data. That proportion would be 32,000 over 40,000. We could, of course, simplify that if we wanted to make that down to divide the top and the bottom by 1,000, and you have 32 over 40. Divide that top and bottom by 8, and you've got 4/5. So that proportion of 4/5 is a statistic. 4/5 of the patients that come in are diagnosed with depression. Or you could even make that into a percent. If you prefer it as a percent, that one number, that statistic as a percent, remember to make it into a percent, you just make your denominator 100. So to get to 100, 5 times 20 would give me 100. Well, then 4 times 20 is 80. So this is equal to 80%. So this is also a statistic. 80% of the patients are diagnosed with depression. So our vocabulary, population, the entire group of interest. Sample, if we collect data from part of that population, that's our sample. The variable of interest is the thing that changes from member to member. It's the data that I'm collecting there. What is it I'm collecting? And then if we collect it from a sample, that one number is called a statistic. If we're able to collect from the entire population, we call it a parameter. Math made simple. It's Simpson Math. Thanks for watching.